Michamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit Neye AKANFO NANASOM Da Medinde Ojirapo Kwesi Ranen Bata Akan Akwamumai Maruka Etipi Mu Ojirapo Ojiramai Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans like people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Ranem Bata Akan, Ojirapo of the Akwamo Nation in North America, within Ojiramai, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in once again to the broadcast. We're opening up the chat room. If you have a question or a comment and you want to log into the chat room, you must log in with the username. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk in order to interact in the chat room. If you are on the phone line and would like to interact, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised, and then we can interact. We have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of Nanasom, of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Ancestral Religion, primarily because of the, number 1, we're Akan, number 2, because of the misinformation propagated regarding Akan culture, cosmology, philosophy, and so forth. So we go into detail about that on Joda on Monday nights. On Benada or Abenada Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Ancestral Religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but ancestral religion in general, no matter what form it takes, whether it's Akan or Yoruba, Ebe, Fon, Fula, Basa, Maasai, Obambo, Obimbundu, whatever the tradition is, Hoodoo, Juju, Vodou, Rigri, Wanga in the Western Hemisphere. We talk about how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African Black people. Ancestral religion, Nanasom, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities that we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. It is through Ojira purification that we operationalize Nanasom. Purification operationalizes ancestral religion. So we deal with that on Benada Tuesday nights on that broadcast, showing how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. Then on Awukuda Akwada Wednesday nights, we have Egua Marketplace. We showcase an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit business, organization, or institution that is serving the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity, yet also maintaining and conveying our ancestral religious values in the process. We have published the Okomfo Economic Development Model. You can download that from our Okomfo Economic Development Model webpage on our website at ojirapo.com. That document includes the strategy that we use, that we employ, starve the beast and feed the pride. So we target one Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks. And we target that business for optimal capital infusion. When we engage the process of starving the beast and feeding the pride, that means you make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds you would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then you starve the pride. You take those funds and reallocate those funds away from the white business and direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. As we said, we target one business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks for optimal capital infusion. When you take $5 or $10 away from the white business that you would have wasted at a Walmart, at a 7-Eleven, at a McDonald's, at a Starbucks, at a Burger King, or whatever, starve the beast and feed the pride, and reallocate that $10 to the business of the week. That's a $10 infusion of capital, a redistribution of $10 when 1,000 of our people engage that process. Then that black business receives a $10,000 infusion of capital in the course of 1 week. And that allows them to keep their business open, hire black people within the community to work in the business to serve us at a greater capacity, to provide those products and services that we were accessing from our enemies. Now, our people can provide that. They can have gainful employment. They can feed themselves, feed their families, and so forth. It's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process, by default, we leave that $10,000 in the hands of the whites and their offspring, our absolute enemies, whether it's white Europeans, white Americans, white Latinos, white Hispanics, white Arabs, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hindus, whoever it is. We're feeding them by default. We're leaving those funds in their hands by default, and we're financing our own oppression by default when we do not starve the beast and feed the pride. Reallocate those funds from the white businesses to the business, organization, or institution of the week. So when you look on our Okomfo Economic Development Model page, you will see a list of businesses, organizations, and institutions, and we will be increasing those businesses on a regular basis. You can see the ones that we have supported. You'll see the links to their websites. You'll also see the links to the interviews that they did with us on the show, 2 hour interviews where they sat and communicated with us, talked about how they established their business, organization, institution, their philosophy behind service to the community, and how their ancestral religious values inform their service to the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community. So that's what we have on Igua Marketplace Day, Wednesday nights. On Yauda, which is also Yada or Abada, Thursday night, we have our new broadcast, Amain Sim, Affairs of the Amain, Affairs of the Nation. We had our first inaugural broadcast of Amain Sim last week, last Yauda, and we talk about the affairs of Ojirama, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. And we go into detail about that, different issues affecting our people and our response to these various issues that confront us on a daily basis as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. So these are the 4 shows that we have on a weekly basis. Some will be live. Sometimes we'll have pre-recorded podcasts where we will send that information out. If you are not on our main site, we have a separate social media network that is private, separate from Facebook, that we pay for, that we own, Afuraka-Afuraitkaitnit.ning.com, Ning.com. You can join that. It's similar to Facebook. People have profiles, post images, but also post discussions, blogs, videos, articles, various things. People are networking, studying from the same kind of information, networking at different parts of the country, different parts of the world. So you can join that website. We'll put the link in the chat room right now. Afuraka-Afuraitkaitnit.ning.com. I'm sorry, Afuraka-Afuraitkaitnit.ning.com. And we're also going to put the link in the chat room. And for those who just came on, if you have a question or a comment, if you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you have a question or a comment on the phone line, hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. We can interact with you. Final announcement before we get started. On June 24th is our first annual Ojiramain Afashe. Ojiramain means the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere, African black people in the Western Hemisphere. We're having our Ojiramain Afashe, our first conference focused on Amanye, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit nationism, the purification of nationalism. So we're going to be talking about nation building, restoration. We have a number of presenters. We will have vendors there. It's an all-day event. FIDA, or Friday, June 24th, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Washington, D.C. You'll see the information on the Ojiraman Afashe webpage on our website. We also released a trailer for the conference that you can look at that video as well. We sent out some notifications, so for those who didn't get the notification, today is the deadline. Tonight is the deadline for those who would like to place ads in the Ojiraman Afashe book or journal that we will be publishing and releasing, and giving a free copy to each conferee, everybody who attends the conference, but the book will also be available on our website as well. Ebook version will be available for free, but we will also have the softcover version for those who would like to purchase the softcover version. If you would like to place an ad, whether it's an ad for your business, ad for your organization, ad for your institution, or if you would just like to support the work that we are doing, including these free, not only broadcasts, but all of our conferences are free. The Afuraitkaini community, of course, our people are invited only and only allowed in, as well as any presentation we do around the country. We never charge speakers' fees to organizers of our events. We also do not charge an admission fee when we go out and do a presentation, lecture, workshop, and so forth. Everyone comes to our events for free. We also give away a free copy of one of our softcover books. We have published 20 books to date on various aspects of ancestral religion, culture, philosophy, nation building, and so forth. We always give away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who attends the event. So when you come to an event, no matter what state it's in, city it's in, you come to a free presentation, and we give you a free copy of one of our softcover books that you can take home with you to study. We've given away over 860 softcover books at our various presentations. We want to keep that going. So if you support that kind of work, you just want to put an ad in the journal and support the work, you can do that. That also allows us to assist us in raising the funds to bring our presenters out for the free conference. A couple who are coming in from out of state to present to help them cover their travel expenses. And we also have our fundraiser for our institution, Akongwa Suyadain, which is our institution of learning, training, employment, and entrepreneurship. All of the publications are born of our institution. The broadcasts that we do born of the institution. We have our own publishing arm. We publish our own books. We publish, print, and everything in-house. We don't contract that out. So everything that we do is in-house. We also have our free workshops and presentations and so forth. So when we have our center, when we finally get a chance to open that center, we're raising funds to open that center, we'll be able to expand our class offering, expand the activities that we're already engaged in. We will continue to publish. We have more books coming out, a number of books coming out. We'll be able to expand our free class offering, continue to do the broadcast. We will also have a publishing arm where we will have employment opportunities in the center for Afuraitkaini people only, of course. We already have our entrepreneurship option, the no quadifo distributor option. If you would like to begin to distribute our 20 books, softcover books, you can begin that process immediately, notwithstanding your prior work history. You can begin tonight. The wholesale price of the book is 35% off, so you purchase them for 35% off, and then you sell them for full price, and that you can generate income. You can begin that process immediately. When you go to the publications page on our website, you will see all of the information for the no quadifo distributor option. This is a means by which we assist people in becoming self-employed, independent. You're not working for us, you're working for yourself. You're purchasing the books from us wholesale, and then you are working as an independent entrepreneur, selling books wherever you are, and the books typically sell themselves once people see them. The information draws them in and sells them, they sell themselves. So we already have that entrepreneurship option in place for any black person anywhere in the country in different parts of the world. We want to expand our employment opportunities, expand that program, expand our class offerings once we establish the center. But the establishment of the center will allow us to do even more than we're doing right now. So that's the purpose of establishing the center. So look at the fundraiser campaign, Akongwasuadine. Any contribution of $15 or more gives you the option of receiving one or more of our books in return for your donation. So you automatically get a book or more for a donation that you give, but at the same time, you're also receiving the long-term benefit, the immediate benefit of the book or books, but the long-term benefit of participating in establishing, helping to contribute to establish an institution for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, and we will have classes that are live streamed from the institution to people around the country, our people, and around the world, of course. So even if you're not physically present at the center, you'll still be able to benefit from what is being taught from the center. So everybody will have access. Everybody will benefit. It won't just be a center in a specific city and nobody else in the country can benefit. All of our people can benefit no matter where we are. That's what we're dealing with. So again, for those who would like to place ads in the Ojira Mind Journal that's going to be given out at our Ojira Mind conference on June 24th, today is the deadline. We send out a couple of emails over the past few days. So go to the Ojira Mind Afashe page. We post the link in the chat room. You can see it on our website to place your ad. 1/4 page is $25. A half page is $35. A full page is $50. And of course, it's a magazine size journal, 8.5 by 11. They are in full color. So we're over nearly 2 million hits on our website so far this year. We'll have over 3 million by the end of our year, which our year ends in September. We'll have that journal on the website permanently, free download. So if you place your ad, your business, your institution, your organization, your study group, whatever, you will have thousands of our people from around the world being able to see and access that information when you post that ad. So go to the page for that. And yet I'll say for those who would like, who have already placed an ad, we do have a few more vending spaces available, so you can get that information on the Ojirafo page as well. We provide a 6-foot table and 2 chairs, and the vending space for the entire day is $30 for the entire day. So you see all of that information on the Ojirafo Afashe page. All right. So, topic for tonight is Komfo, the Akan origin of Goofer Doctor in Hoodoo. So we say, examining the origins, people have heard of Goofer Doctor, Goofer dust. It's spelled sometimes Goofer or Goopher. The white Canal Spring are spelling it similar to Goopher because when they heard our people pronounce it, they would hear it say Goopher or Goofer, Goofer Doctor. And the first term that the white Canal Spring that could associate with Goofer or Goofer is Gopher. So they would spell it like Gopher, but they would add an extra O and say Goopher. But then when they would hear us say it, pronounced in the dialect, they would say, well, they're just saying it in a southern dialect. So Gofa really means Goopher and so forth, and they would spell it in that fashion. But Gofa or Goomfa comes from Komfo in the Akan tradition. Now, this is very important. It's related to this series of broadcasts and publications that we have put out, and we're the first to show and the first to demonstrably prove that the Hoodoo tradition in North America is the Akan religion in North America. Just like the Vodou tradition is the Fon and Ewe people's tradition that they brought into North America. So when people who are Fon speaking people, speaking Fon-Be, Ewe speaking people, speaking Ewe-Be, speaking their language, in their language the term Vodou means a deity, a spirit, a goddess or a god, spirit forth in creation, animating the sun or animating the earth mother, animating the rivers, oceans, and so forth. The term Vodou is the name for a divinity, a deity. When they were forced into North America, they continued to utilize their language. So they would still use the term Vodou. So whether it's in Louisiana or the different parts of the United States, the term Vodou or Voodoo continues to be used. And when it was first used, it was Fon and Ebe-speaking people who brought that term and that tradition here. The term Juju is a Yoruba term dealing with casting energy, casting medicine and so forth, throwing medicine and so forth. That term continued to be used by Yoruba-speaking people when they got off those boats. They continued to say Juju as a representative of their tradition. So originally that term Juju was referencing the Yoruba people's ancestral religion as brought in North America. The term hoodoo comes from the Akan term undu, which means medicine, dealing with roots, trees, branches, stalks, and so forth. It also means becoming heavy with the spirit through conjuring and so forth. So undu became hundu, hoodoo, which means root work, root medicine, but it also means conjure. Of course, we have published the work Kanche and Hinti. Kanche is an Akan term, which means utter incantations to bring the spirits forth. This is why we continue to use the term Kanche. Once we got into North America and the whites and our offspring heard us saying Kanche, which is K-A, Ka, and Che, K-Y-E, Kanche. They heard us saying that. They knew it meant to utter incantation, Ka, to bring forth the spirit, Che, Kanche. And they heard us saying that and they thought we were saying Kanje or conjure. So they were like, oh, they're saying conjure. So their tradition is called conjure. But in reality, we were saying Kanche. And even we showed, of course, an ancient Kemet. In the Medusas, the so-called hieroglyphs, the term Ka means to speak, utter incantations, emit, and Che means to come forth, as in the coming forth of the sun, the rising of the sun, the emergence of that energy. Kanche means the same thing in ancient Kemet as it does in the Akan language, because, of course, the Akan or tree language is directly derived from the parent language of Kanat and Kemet, Nubian Kemet, and we continue to use those exact same terms with the exact same meaning in North America. The same thing with the term hinti, or hinti meaning an arousal. Spirits being referred to as hinti spirits are those spirits who are aroused or awakened or fired up. And this is where you get the term hint or haint spirit. So kanche is conjure. Hinti from the Akan language is haint. Hoodoo comes from undu, dealing with specifically medicine from roots, trees, bark, stumps, and so forth. We have the undu mafo, the group of people folk who are uduma people. These are the hoodoo man and hoodoo woman in North America. They're the uduma people in the Akan tradition, meaning the medicine-giving people, the root-working people, and so forth. We have the odun sinifo, which are the root doctors, physicians, oduyefo, which are the conjurers, and so forth. So all of the terminology that you find in hoodoo comes directly from the Akan tradition and cosmology. We are the first to prove that definitively. People used to try to mix and say, well, hoodoo is just another version of the term voodoo, totally inaccurate. People say hoodoo is just another spelling of juju, totally inaccurate. Whites and offspring would try to say that hoodoo comes from an Irish term, totally inaccurate. Or coming from Judeo or Judaism, totally inaccurate. We prove that conclusively in our book, Hoodoo People, as well as the Hoodoo Mind Journal. This is another part. We also talked about the mojo, coming from the term moja, meaning blood in Akan, the mojo bag, and so forth. We talked about that in the broadcast as well. So, as well as the jack ball, talking about the ja, sack, in the Akan tradition. It has, medicine and so forth. We talked about this in the previous broadcast, so this is just an extension of this series. Some people will say, just like we have the hoodoo man, hoodoo woman, that comes from the hoodoo mafo, hoodoo ma people, the medicine-giving people, root-working, giving people, and so forth. We continued that priest and priestesshood, that descriptive in North America, unbroken for hundreds of years. But the term Komfo, in the Akan tradition, there's a class of priests, priestesses, healers, healeresses, called Okomfo, plural Okomfo, singular, and well known as part of that priestess class. healers, healeresses, conjurers, conjuresses, and so forth. That term, Komfo, which is ubiquitous in Akan culture, can be found in North America as well. So Komfo became Goomfo or Goofa, the Goofer Doctor, spreading the Goofa dust, the Goofa medicine. Goofa comes from Komfo, Komfo, and so forth. It's just a dialectical variant of that. Now, the whites and their offspring, when you look at the origin of the term Goofa Doctor or Goofa dust, being connected with the Goofa Doctor, the healer, and the medicine person, they will say that it comes from Kufwa, which means to die in Kikongo, in the language of the Bakongo people. That is just a belief put forward by a white so-called ethnologist, because they don't know anything about our culture. So they make all these associations, the same kind of misinformation promoted, trying to identify the term hoodoo with the Irish or the so-called Jew. We don't put stock in these foolish etymologies given by the whites and their offspring. So you look at a number of different sites, and they all point to Kufwa, meaning to die in Kikongo. But what is to die having to do with not just the Goofer dust? It's not only dealing with graveyard dirt or soil, but it's also dealing with other kinds of clay, other kinds of powders, grinding up, as we're going to find out, the bones of specific animals and even insects and so forth, and using that dust for healing purposes as well as defensive medicine, offensive and defensive medicine. So, but then you also have the Goofa Doctor. That means the Goofa healer. Who is the Goofa healer? When a person becomes possessed by the spirits of the Nananum Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of his or her direct blood circle. When one becomes possessed by the Abosom, the spirits that animate different aspects of creation, the divine spirit forces in creation. Our people have been becoming possessed by the Nsamanfo and Abosom, the ancestresses and ancestors and deities, since we have been here. We got possessed on plantation, were roused up and led great marches and wars against the whites and our offspring, guided in the proper use of medicine by the deities when they possess, by the ancestral spirits when they possess, finding out the nature and the properties of the plant life and mineral life in this new region that we were unaccustomed to, being forced into the Western Hemisphere, learning directly from plant life, animal life, and the deities that govern plant life and mineral life, and have these animals as their totems, because these animals carry their energy complex, learning directly from the divinities how to use these new plants that we never came in contact with. How do we use them for medicine, healing, food, poison, chemical and biological warfare, and so forth. We've been getting possessed, becoming possessed by the spirits of the ancestors and deities since we have been here, that is youth as well as adults. And when we became possessed, we continued to use the exact same term that we have also always used for thousands of years. The Komfo, and we even use that term in the black people in Jamaica who are descendants of the Akan. They would say the Komfo, and they would say the Komfo man, talking about the priest or priestess, a healer, coming from the Akan term Komfo. And of course, in North America, Komfo became Kufa and Gumfa, becoming the Goofa Doctor. That's the Komfo Doctor. The Komfo, male or female, healer or healeress, conjurer, conjuress. So first we're going to go to one of our documents, one of our short publications, to give some background on that. It's called Akan and Ancestral. We'll put a link to that in the chat room. This is we've not only published 20 books, we've also published over 80 articles, and this is one of the short articles. We just put the link to that in the chat room. There's two separate pieces, Akom and Nkom, spirit possession and spirit communication, the key to understanding cosmology. So that's the first part of it, but then there's a second part that we want to deal with. You scroll down. So when you look at page 3, we want to get a little bit further down than that. And that will be page 5. So we're talking about on page 5 of Akom and Nkom, transcarnational inheritance, ancestral religion, and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Africans in America. So we give an Akan proverb. This is an Akanfo Ebe, or an Akan people's proverb. But of course, we have lived this in North America, so we know exactly what this proverb is, even though we lost fluency in the language, but we live the culture. So we know exactly what it means. In the Akan tradition, the ebe or proverb, Abosom na etchere Okomfo ntwaho, which means it is the deity, the Abosom, the force of nature, that shows or teaches etchere, the priest or priestess, the Okomfo, how to whirl around or spin around. It is the deity who teaches the priest or priestess how to spin around. What are they talking about? When the spirit possesses one of our people, one of the Abosom possesses one of our people through ritual song, ritual dance, and then you see the person, first they were just dancing normally, and then they begin to spin around in a very rapid pace because the Abosom has possessed them, and then once they are fully possessed and they're spinning around, then they move around and they heal and admonish and teach and guide the people, show them the use of herbs, lay hands to heal and so forth. What is it that causes them to whirl around? Of course, when we see the person beginning to spin around, their eyes change and so forth, we know the Abosom has mounted, taken up residence, mounted the person. We know what's happening. The Abosom is the spirit has taken possession of the individual. Kom, meaning to possess. Ko, meaning to go. Ko, move within. Komu, to go within. The spirit has gone within, taking up residence, possession. So when we say in a proverbial way, it is the deity, the Abosom, who teaches the priest or priestess, the Okomfo, how to whirl around. That means we didn't practice, we didn't learn how to spin around and get possessed by practicing spirit possession. Once the deity takes over, they're the ones that take over the body. That happens here in America. If someone looks on the Akan, in the Akan tradition on the continent, we see the same thing happening. People playing drums, people dancing, and all of a sudden the person begins to spin around and the spirit takes possession and takes them out, and the spirit begins to operate through their body. You go 1,000 miles in another direction, a different ethnic group, you see drums playing, people dancing, they begin to spin around and the deity possesses. You look in ancient Kemet and Kanat, you have the same thing going on. So it's not that we taught ourselves how to spin around and get possessed. When the deity takes up resonance in the body, they teach the person how to quote-unquote whirl around. Simply saying, that's a poetic way of saying spirit possession is manifest when the person is spinning around and the deity is taking control. The divine force in creation is operating now. The person didn't come up with this on their own. This is the deity operant within the individual. So when you look at that particular section, and we go to some a little bit of detail in that specific section, and then we show the meanings of the term in the Akan language. We translate them, and we talk about that basic piece. Now, the reason why that is key, if you scroll up a little bit, that was page 5. Scroll up to pages 3 and 4. If you look at pages 3 and 4, we have entries from the Akan or Asante and Fanti dictionary, published in 1881, 12,881, a so-called 1881, and also another edition in 12,933, a so-called 1933 Gregorian calendar. And then we have entries from a hieroglyphic dictionary, the 2-volume set by Budge. The reason why we show these two, because when you look at the term Kom in Akan, this is how they define it in the Asante Fanti dictionary when the whites and offspring went to our people to compiled an over 600-page dictionary, speaking to our people, asking them, what does this word mean? What does it mean in context with regard to the culture? And you'll see that we're giving them idioms and sayings and stories about not only the definition of the word and how it's pronounced, but also stories and so forth. Then the whites in Alice Springs write down the definitions, and this is the dictionary. And they begin to describe it based on what they heard our people saying, but then they also use their own, Eurocentric mindset as well. But it's important to show the comparison. In the Asante Dictionary, published in quote-unquote 1881, Kom means to dance wildly in a state of frenzy or ecstasy, ascribed by the natives to the agency of a fetish, meaning a deity. To be possessed with a fetish, meaning a deity. To perform the actions or practices of a fetish man, meaning Okomfo and so forth. To prophesy, meaning to speak what's going to happen in the future. To soothsay, to foretell, and so forth. This is what the Okomfo, because Kom is dealing with that. The root Kom or Ko, Mu, two different words. Ko means to go, Mu means within. Komu or Kom means to enter, to penetrate. That's why we're talking about possession. Kom also means to bend, to bow, to incline, to turn aside. When the spirit mounts the person, then the person, quote-unquote, bends or bows and allows the spirit to take up a residence. They turn aside and allow the divinity to take up residence in their physical vehicle temporarily so that they can communicate through a physical vessel with the community in a physical way. We talk about an analogy. If you're driving in a car and you're behind the wheel, you're controlling the vessel. If someone else gets in the car and you move from the driver's seat and you get in the back seat and they take the wheel, you're still in the vessel, but they are at the wheel and they're directing the direction of the vessel. You're seeing everything that's happening, but you're not in control of the direction that the vessel is going. But once they get out of the car and you get back in the driver's seat, then you direct the vessel once again. The car or the vehicle is your physical body. Your spirit, your sunsum, is the driver behind the wheel. Your spirit is operating through your physical body. But when possession takes place, komu, kom, to go within, then your spirit takes the back seat, and the abosom, the orisha, the voodoo, and so forth gets inside your body, takes up residence, and is in the driver's space. You can see what's going on, but the deity is possessed. So a deity possesses somebody at ritual, and the spirit is walking around in the person's body. The person is in the back seat, so to speak, and the deity is speaking to the people, touching the people, healing the people, and so forth, until the spirit leaves the body, and so forth. This is why it is not only to enter or penetrate, komu, kom, also to bend, to bow, to incline, to turn aside. This is in the Asante Dictionary. Now we're going to go to the hieroglyphic dictionary thousands of years earlier. Kom means to bend, to bow, same as it is in Akan. Then you also have koma, which means to grasp, to seize, to lay hold upon, to hold, to possess, to contain. So kom and koma and ejikamet means to possess, and they show a hand possessing. And in other variations, they show two arms grasping to possess. But it also means to seize and so forth. But it also means to bend, to bow, to submit. Exact same two definitions. Then we also have the term in the Asante Dictionary, okom, meaning hunger. Akom, a state of being possessed with a fetish. Nkom, oracle communication, spiritual communication. And then you also have the term nkom bere. Bere means a place. Akom, possession or hunger. What is the hunger or possession? Kom, bere, place. That is the throat. The throat is the place, bere, of kom, meaning hunger. Why is it called the hunger place? Because that's the place where the food, komu, goes, ko, mu, within. So the throat is the okom, the place where food, komu, or goes within, and the throat possesses the food, and so forth. And then this is the reason you have the term okom, also meaning hunger. It's the hunger place, is the throat. Hunger is the desire to draw in or pull in that which nourishes or empowers physically. Spiritually, you draw or pull into your physical body or your spiritual body, physical body, the spiritual force, power that empowers you and guides you in a harmonious fashion. This is why Okom physically can mean hunger, but then Akom, the state of being possessed by a divinity, because the food going in, Komu, Kom, to possess and empower you, or the deity going in the body to possess or empower. And then Kom, spiritual communication. Once that energy is within you, the spirit is in you, then you can Kom, engage in spirit communication. You can do divination. You can tell people what's happening in their life, other ancestral spirits communicating with them, other deities communicating with them, what's about to happen, what they need to do to overcome a situation, and so forth. And we've talked about that in our broadcast, Ade Bisa, when we talked about our divination system. So Okom meaning hunger. Okom Bere is the hunger place of the so-called throat, the place where food is possessed, and so forth. So we show in the hieroglyphs, in the Medusa, Kom meaning to embrace. That's also to possess, showing two arms bending to embrace. Kom in the hieroglyph meaning neck or throat, and showing the symbol of the neck or throat. Then you have the related term Ka in the hieroglyphs meaning to fall into an ecstasy, to prophesy during a frenzy. That's in the hieroglyphic dictionary. To fall into an ecstasy, to prophesy during a frenzy. Go back to the definition in the Akan dictionary, Kom, it says to dance wildly in a state of frenzy or ecstasy, to prophesy. So this is the reason we juxtapose the Authentic Akan dictionary written in Gregorian calendar 1881. Then you have a totally different field of endeavor, Egyptology, and they're defining the term Kom, and it also says they use the same exact terminology. Of course, they didn't collaborate. The Akan, the missionaries, the Christian missionaries of the Basel Mission in Ghana did not collaborate with the Egyptologists in London to make sure that Kom said to dance in a state of frenzy or ecstasy and to prophesy in the hieroglyphic dictionary, to make sure it said exactly the same description in the Asante Fanti dictionary decades earlier. Of course, it's saying the same thing because it's the same language. The key is that we experience this, so we know this. We live this, whether it's on the continent, whether it's in ancient Kemet, of course, as it's proven, Kom meaning to possess, but also here in North America. So the Komfo, the group of people, who engage the Kom process, the Komfo, become the Komfo people, the Goomfa people. Goomfa people are the Goofa doctors, healers, healeresses, and so forth. So there's a direct relationship. But let's get into specific uses so we can prove it even further. Give me 1 second. Now that we have that cosmological background and foundation, we can talk about what the people would typically define a Goofer Doctor using the Goofer dust and the Goofa dust and what it means and so forth. And then we can give actual definitions, real definitions of what's really happening and what our people have been engaged in ritually, and show the connection to the Akan tradition as well as ancient Kanat and Kemet. So you can find all kinds of definitions of Komfo dust or quote-unquote Goofer dust all over the internet. So you could just, for example, in the work Hoodoo Conjuration, Witchcraft, Root Work by Harry Middleton Hyatt, who did thousands of pages, went around to different states all over the country, interviewing hoodoo men and hoodoo women, asking them all about the names of things that they call their implements and their ritual practices, and what is a haint spirit, what is hoodoo, what is Goofer dust, what is this, what is that, what is a mojo bag, what is all these different things. And he just sat down and recorded everything that they said. He recorded it in the dialect that they spoke, using the spellings that approximated the way they were pronouncing the words and so forth. So a few excerpts from that when he's asking questions to people in different states. So he asked one person, what is Goofer Doctor? One person says, this is a person in Fayetteville, North Carolina that he's interviewing. This is going on in the early, quote-unquote, 1900s, primarily between 1935 and 1939. And the person says to him, the person in Fayetteville, North Carolina, one of our ancestresses, Goofer dust is dust right from the cemetery. Now we're talking about earth, asase, earth, soil, and so forth, right from the cemetery, but it's getting out from under the footstone. What I mean, the footboard, talking about the footstone, in the cemetery. You go to run, you cross running water, and you bless it in the water. You carry it through the water, and the water puts what you call a Christian spirit on it, because this particular individual was already being co-opted by Christianity at that point. And what he's talking about is coming from the graveyard dirt, and so forth. This is Fayetteville, North Carolina. Then he asked another person, what is Goofer dust? Another person in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He asked him, well, what is it supposed to be? Have you ever heard of Goofer dust? What is it supposed to be? They said, yeah, I've heard of that. He said he heard talking about a preacher trying to break up a married couple at the wife's request. He told her what to do. He had her to bring some salt along with some sulfur and some turpentine. She brought that stuff to him. He took the stuff, went to the graveyard that night. He took some of the dirt from the west side. The west side is that way, the west side corner of the grave. Very important, because when we establish our ancestral shrines and put them on the west wall of the home, or the southwest wall, it has to do with the land of the setting sun. The land of the setting sun in ancient Kemet is called the Aminti, the west, the land where the sun sets. That is the gateway to the ancestral realm, which is why even today we talk about placing, you see the graveyards and so forth, and the tombs on the west side of the Hapi River, temples and other life-giving institutions on the east side of the rising sun. We still do that today, having the ancestral shrines on the west wall of the home. Here, of course, in the hoodoo tradition, going to the graveyard, getting the dirt from the west side, west corner of the grave. He tucked that and fixed it all up into just something like a powder, and he went, and I know this for my own self because he strayed around here and seen him on the street, and he went to this man's house and sprinkled this stuff all around the porch the next morning. And he told this woman, you let him come outdoors first, don't you come out, and let him come out first. And he came out and he walked along this stuff and everything. Within a few days, the Goofer husband packed up all of his things and left his wife. So they utilized the dirt and the mixture, the powder, sprinkled it around the house. Once the husband came out and walked across it, overwhelming desire to leave his wife, and now this little crooked preacher was able to marry the wife that he was trying to separate, and the wife asked him to do something ritually to separate her husband and make her husband leave so they could be together. So this is one of these uses. This is a negative use, a silly use. Some people use, medicine to heal. Some people use medicine to kill. Some people use medicine to control and so forth. So there are lower level uses of medicinal things, but if you're connected with the abosom, they don't allow you to utilize medicine for self-destructive purposes. They will not participate in that. So the only spirits that you have left to work with if you're engaged in self-destructive activities are wayward criminal type spirits. So that was another usage. Another one from Fayetteville, North Carolina. They tell me now if Goofer dust is just like if you have loved somebody, this is what they tell me. If you love them and they have died and been dead for a number of years, when you go to this graveyard where they've been buried and you dig right down underneath the rock, the tombstone, you get the dust or the dirt from it and you sprinkle it on just like you want to go for somebody, meaning you want to draw somebody in. You sprinkle that dust on the next person you want to love. That will make them fall in love with you. That's one of these uses. They're creating that magnetic attraction, the same kind of energy the person who died had for the person. They want to collect some of that magnetic energy, contain it within that powder, and then sprinkle it around the person so that affects them in a, parasympathetic way. Now, there are more different ones. This one is from Jacksonville, Florida. Ask again, what is Goofer dust? The person says, well, they say, for instance, that you go to the cemetery, and the first seven graves you come to, at the foot of the seventh grave, get down about 7 inches, get out some of the dust, then you take it home, put it into some salt, and then you make 7 steps into the home. The home that you want to put the bad luck on, and then you begin 7 steps back. You begin sprinkling what they call the Goofer dust, Komfo dust, or the Komfo dust, Komfo powder, and that's the beginning of the hard luck for the person. So utilizing it as defensive medicine. And then you offset it the same way. It's the same graveyard dust seed to offset it and then to make it stronger. While you put salt in the 4 corners of the home, you make a wish to each corner and name them. You see that's where you have salt. And then some people, they say much suspicious towards salt. They won't even loan you salt. And the person says, I myself, I won't loan salt. I'd rather give you a nickel and let you buy some salt because they know what people are doing with the salt. That was in Jacksonville, Florida. They say this is what in Florence, South Carolina, that's what they call graveyard clay, Goofer dust. And that's going to be very important because we're going to talk about the shell, the clay that Okomfo used in Ghana, that powdered clay, earth, clay, and so forth to sprinkle on the bodies of the person when they become possessed by the abosom, possessed by the Nsamanfo, going through initiation and other uses. So graveyard clay is also called Goofa dust or Komfo dust or Komfo dust, Komfo soil. And we've showed the images on the introduction for the show. You see these different priestesses possessed, and they have this white clay, this powder on them. So in Florence, South Carolina, they say that's what they call graveyard clay, Goofer dust. That's what they call it down here. In Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that was Florence, South Carolina. In Elizabeth City, North Carolina, they take the graveyard dirt, they say, and make Goofer dust out of it and gave you a lingering cough. They can utilize that, the energy associated with that aspect of the Earth Mother to make someone sick and have a lingering cough. Mobile, Alabama, graveyard dirt and different things mixed together is Goofer dust. Look in Richmond, Virginia. It's supposed to be dirt coming out the burning ground, and you get little roots right from the root of a tree in the burning ground. Just cut the root off the tree. You take and keep that and let it get kind of old. You take and ball it up, rubbing it around in the hands, and you take it to the graveyard dirt and sprinkle it right around the front door of somebody's house to make them have that bad luck. That's Komfo or Goofer dust. That's in Richmond, Virginia. Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, Goofer dust, this is a graveyard dirt, red pepper, black pepper, and black pepper. And they call all that stuff, you can get a little smell and powder him, all of them Goofer dust. They call it Goofer. It do things that you just can't do, ordinary things just cannot be done like it can be done with the Goofer dust. Red pepper, black pepper. Red, and in this Little Rock, Arkansas, they're talking about red pepper and black pepper. That is related to that red earth and black earth. In the Akan tradition, that is asase koko, the red earth, Asase Tuntum, the black earth. That is related to the people. Some people are called, for example, in Oyoko clan, the Oyoko Koko, the red Oyoko people, Oyoko Tuntum, the black Oyoko people. That is dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones. That is dealing with the nature of the energy complex. The reddish energy is more fiery. The black energy is more cool. This comes directly from ancient Kemet and Kanat, the black land and the red land. Desharu is the red land, the desert and the red clay and so forth. The black land is Kemet, but then the people of the black land and red land are dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones, but that's not just Kemet. You also see that in Kanat, or so-called Nubia. You see the Nubians, Kanitu people, visiting Kemet and bringing tribute to the kings and queen mothers, and you see them the interplay between the dark black ones and the reddish brown. You look at the red, or the BRW, so-called, the archaeologists call the BRW pottery ware, the so-called black and red ware with the black and red motifs, those wavy motifs that you see on the pottery that goes back 15,000 years all over southern Kemet, in Kanat, Nubia, in the western Libyan desert, in the region of Nabta Playa, going back 17,000 years, all the way into India, tens of thousands of years ago. That same black and red interchange or play between the black and red energy. That goes back to Obri, black, and Koko, red, and Akan, titles of Alsar and Set in the Akan tradition. You'll find, of course, Alsar being Kam-Or, the great black one. You find Set being called Desharu or Desher, the red one, and so forth. Is dealing with the interplay between that reddish fiery energy and that black energy. Within your body, you have the red land in your body, which is the blood, and then you have the black land, which is the abatum or the melon. The red energy carries the oxygen, the fire, and so forth. The blood carries the oxygen carries the life force energy flowing throughout your body, being pumped and sent throughout the body by the heart. But then the black land carries that magnetic energy, that black land or black melanin, directly from the black substance of space, the great Ka and Kaet, which is the container of all things. So that magnetic energy is within the black land. That fiery energy is within the red land or the blood vessels and so forth, the blood itself. So the black land and the red land is in your body. The black land and the red land of ancient Kemet, the black people, red people, dark brown people, black undertones, red undertones. We have the Asase Tuntum, Asase Koko, the black earth, red earth, and so forth. They have their different properties. When we didn't have access, if they're in Little Rock, Arkansas, if we didn't have access, we would take mineral substances that carry the same energy. If we didn't have access to red clay, like the red clay of Georgia and Alabama and so forth, if you're in a region like in Arkansas, you don't have access to the red clay, you'll get a mineral that carries that reddish energy. You get that red pepper, you get that black pepper, you mix that together with the soil of earth, so you can still have that black and red energy within the earth. This is the Goofa Doctor, the Komfo Doctor that she's talking about. All of this is tied in. All of it is part of our ancestral inheritance from ancient Kanat, the Kan land, to West Afurakani, the Akan land. Ancient Kanat is the title of Nubia. We moved and reestablished ancient Kanat or Ghana in the western part of the continent. A couple of thousand years ago, about 1,000 years later, some of our people migrated from that region, the empire of Kanat, the Akana empire, towards the forest belt and reestablished Akana or Akan civilization in the forest belt. A few hundred years later, those Akana people, some of them were snatched up and forced into the Western Hemisphere during enslavement. This is how the Akan people come from ancient Kanat, Nubia, to West Afuraitkaitnit, to the Western Hemisphere, carrying the same black and red energy, and the abosom connected to those energy complexes, and we still utilize that energy in what we are doing. So, then you have Snow Hill, Maryland. They claim they make it from bones, dried bones from people. They call it Goofa dust at home. They sprinkle a little Goofa dust in your tracks, and you're sure going wrong. Dried bone. And we're also going to get into that shell, that white clay that's sprinkled on the body of the people who are possessed. As Okomfo, you know they're possessed because that's when they get the white powder, but sometimes they use black powder as well, that charcoal and so forth. New Orleans, Louisiana, rattlesnake dust. You know if the rattlesnake die in the dust, the snake shed, you sprinkle that all around and moving powder. They call that Goofer dust, rattlesnake dust. New Orleans, Louisiana. Warrenton, Virginia, they claim that they take serpent's heads and grind them up and powder them up, and they're supposed to bury that under your doorstep. That's Goofer dust. That's supposed to conjure you. You're supposed to walk over that. So now they're getting into the dry bones of people. This will become a white kind of dust. Then the dried head ground up of snakes, the bones and so forth, becomes that white powder. That's also considered Goofa dust. We can understand that now. We can understand the differences now because we have a cultural context. Okomfo, the Komfo, Komfo Doctor, Goofer Doctor, Goofer Doctor, and so forth. There's some instances we use that shell, that white clay, that white powder to put over the bodies of the person, even during rites of passage for people going through rites of passage, but specifically when people are being possessed, sprinkling that white powder over the person. But then you also have that black charcoal that's smeared on the person when medicine is placed in the wound, when someone is cut in specific patterns, sometimes adinkra symbol patterns on the body. Those incisions are created, medicine is placed in, and the charcoal is placed in those cuts as well. Sometimes the medicine from the charcoal is used to be mixed with the medicine, and then you consume that, you eat that, maybe placed on boiled eggs and so forth, and you eat that. That's part of that medicine that you consume and so forth. So these various substances for this black charcoal, red or black pepper, utilizing the earth of Asase, Afua, and Asaseya. Asase Afua is the fertile earth mother. Asaseya is the quote-unquote barren earth mother, the aspect of the earth that also includes where we bury the deceased. And you cut through the surface where it's black soil and then brown earth, and you get deeper, and then you begin to see that red earth. And then the body, is placed in that red earth. So you have the black on top and the red towards the bottom. Of course, you have the same thing on your physical body. The melanin is on the top. You cut through the melanin, the black or the brown melanin on the surface, and then you hit deep, and then you hit the blood, and the red comes up and so forth. So all of these are connected to what we're doing on a regular basis. And we're showing these different states in the country, wherever our people are. They're all disconnected, but they're all talking about the same substance and the same function of these different kinds of uses of the Komfo powder. So it's not a Goofer dust. What they're talking about is the use of mineral life, including the earth, soil, red soil, black soil, white clay, black charcoal, and so forth, used by the Komfo, the priest or priestess. That's why it's called Komfo dust. It's not just graveyard dust, it's Goofer dust, the powder used by the Komfo. And when the Okomfo uses the powder, it becomes Komfo powder or Komfo dust. Whether it's black charcoal powder they use, whether it's white shidel or white clay powder that they use, whether it is red clay, making it into a powder to sprinkle and so forth, whatever the Komfo is using for whatever purpose becomes the Komfo dust or the Komfo dust, Goofa dust, and so forth. Now, Waycross, Georgia, just you get a snake, you can take a rattlesnake, dry its head up, pound it up, and then you can go to work and use that as Goofer dust. You can kill anybody. This is the hoodoo tradition, killing anybody. Another one from Fayetteville, North Carolina, Goofer dust is snake head, scorpion head, lizard head, snake head dust, scorpion dust, lizard dust. That's what you call Goofer dust. You get them things and you kill them and you cut the heads off and you dry that. After you dry that, you powder that up. That's what they call Goofer dust. Do the people around here talk about putting the Goofer dust on you? Yes. What do they mean by that? So they mean they do you harm. When they say Goopher, they mean you do harm. They don't mean you do nothing good to you. That's just doing you harm. They want to Goopher you. Yeah, that's just what they mean, doing harm. Now we have a better understanding. When they, just like HOODOO or Undu means medicine, Undu man, Undu woman, Udumafo, the medicine-giving person, but then it's used as a verb. So Undu, a medicine person, or poison somebody, HOODOO, the person, in the same fashion, when you understand who the Komfo, the one who gets possessed by the spirit, the conjurer, the conjuress, they utilize black charcoal, they utilize white clay, they utilize red clay, they utilize the different soil and substances, mineral substances from earth, and they utilize that to sprinkle for offensive and defensive medicine to heal as well as to kill, to heal as well as to poison and so forth, and cause different things to happen. Whatever the Komfo is doing, it's the Komfo dust, the Komfo's dust, and then someone can say in a descriptive fashion, you have just been Komfo'd because the Komfo did it to you, and the Komfo used his dust, so you've been Komfo'd, and they'll say Goofo or Goopher, and so forth. This is where that comes from. And then you have other ones, Wilson, North Carolina, Wake Cross, Georgia. They have a number of different ones. Sprinkling, another one, Wake Cross, Georgia, Goofer dust. That's just what you might call conjuration. Just like you take a snake shed, the shedding of the skin of the snake and powder it, sprinkle it over anything a person eats or drinks. Well, you see, that's putting Goofer dust in them. That's what you call Goofer dust, poisoning them. And then you also have Goofer dust as dust from any live insect. That's from Charleston, North Carolina. Of course, in our Akan culture, you have the term bona, talking about the dried, shell of the beetles and so forth. New Orleans, Louisiana, any kind of stuff like that, powder or dust in Hoodooism is Goofer dust. Now they're getting to the general definition. What they really mean is when they say any kind of stuff like that, powder or dust in Hoodooism is Goofer dust. When they said that in New Orleans, Louisiana, and when they also said in Charleston, South Carolina, in Wake Cross, Georgia, Goofer dust, that's just what you might call conjuration. Anything that the Komfo uses in the form of powder or dust, any mineral substance from the earth that they use in the form of powder or dust, that becomes the Komfo's dust. So it's not just graveyard dust or graveyard dirt. It's whatever mineral substance the Komfo is using to affect a specific result in a ritual fashion. Then we get back to Savannah, Georgia. They say pepper and salt, but then you get to Vicksburg, Mississippi, brick dust, and charcoal. This is one of those innovations. What is brick dust? They're talking about red brick dust. You're looking at West Afuraitkaitnit, they're talking about that red camwood that's connected to the blood and connected to menstrual blood and so forth, which is sacred. Over here, if we didn't have access to the red camwood, if we were living in an area where we didn't have access to red clay, like in Alabama, Georgia, something like that, here in Vicksburg, Mississippi, they're saying brick dust, so they're getting those red bricks. They're grinding that up so they can get that red substance that carries that energy. They say brick dust and charcoal. That is the red substance and the black substance, from the red man and the black man. From the Asase Koko, the red, Asase red earth, Asase Tumtum, the black earth. From Kemet, the black country, and Deshert, the red country, in ancient Kanat and Kemet. We're still using the red and black substance from the earth to heal as well as kill. Kanat and Kemet, all the way to West Afuraitkaitnit, all the way into North America in HOODOO. And then in Mobile, Alabama, they say that that's just this fine dirt. This dirt, dauber nest, the wasp nest made of fine clay, and the pepper. So now, say, for instance, I want you to lose your memory. If you were going to court or something with or against me, it would get you where so you would probably forget what you was talking about. Mobile, Alabama. So they're utilizing the substance, mineral substance from earth to make somebody lose their memory. They step into the courtroom, they're ready to testify, and they can't remember anything. Case is shut down. And then one from Memphis, Tennessee. What is the Goofer dust? That's what you also buy from one of those order houses you see. It's supposed to put you, what you might call tricks on a person. That's supposed to be, after you obtain it, put it in the mattress of a person where that they have to sleep on, and you're supposed to just go away, just pine away and so forth. So, and then they show a song where they talk about people putting the Goofer dust, the Komfo dust in the mattress of the person, and then the person wakes up, quote unquote, dead. So people are fearing, the Komfo Doctor, meaning the Komfo man, Komfo woman, the Okomfo. And then, of course, you have, for example, in Akan culture, there's a region in Ghana called Abohire, traditions of Bonwiri, of Amanforo and Cherehihi disclose that on the arrival of their ancestors, fought and defeated the Aboriginal inhabitants, locally known as the Banyu Kutu and Kapalator. The battle is referred to as the Battle of Abohire. Because of the victorious Bonwiri, they besmeared themselves with the white clay, shirel, as symbolic of victory. The battleground became the early settlement of Bonwiri, also known as Abohire, now deserted. So you see, one of the reasons we use that white clay, triumph, victory, but we also use it in the same way, and it surfaces even in just a colloquial usage. In the summertime, you wear white. You don't wear a whole lot of black. The reason is the white will repel some of that heat to keep you more cool. If you wore all black, it's a magnet and draws in all of the energy, including all of the heat, and you become very hot. You put that white clay on, and you see the person get possessed by a spirit of an abosom, umsamanfo. They repel any other negative entity, and only the spirit that's taking up residence seated in the person. But then also you see some healers or healeresses cover their face in that black charcoal, pulling in the energy of the kind of forces they need to wage war against the enemy. A number of different uses. You also see some of that red clay used as well, but then you also have this notion of white clay in the South, where people are consuming white clay, very often pregnant women and so forth, consuming, and they'll call them dirt eaters and so forth. They'll say, well, the Southern slaves brought this, practice of eating dirt and so forth, and they brought that to the Southern United States. That still happens today. And people say, well, why are they eating dirt? And people have done documentaries on this, and they call them geophagists and so forth because they're consuming, dirt and so forth. But there's more to it than that. So you look in the Ghanaian tradition, in the Akan tradition, clay in Ghana is molded into small oblong-shaped balls, dried to reduce the moisture, sold in the open market. This product, which is called eshe in the Ewe tradition, shirel in the Akan tradition, ayilor in the Gas tradition, and farin kasa amongst the Hausa people, serves traditional purposes as follows. This is in Ghana. A large number of expectant mothers can be seen chewing the clay from the earth during pregnancy. This practice may have some nutritional backing because of the calcium oxide content, but it appears its function is to act as an absorbent, thus minimizing nausea, which is a common feature of pregnancy. So just as they're doing in Ghana today, this is the reason you have women in the South in the United States consuming, quote-unquote, dirt, or consuming that clay, even that kaolin, that white clay, chalk, starch, and so forth from the earth that goes into kaopectate and so forth. Been doing that for years, partly having to do with calcium oxide, part as an absorbent, minimizing nausea, which is a common feature of pregnancy, but then also during festive occasions such as the sprinkling of the yam by the Okomfo, the so-called fetish priest, to mark the success of a good harvest. Also the performance of puberty rites and rituals for girls. The clay is mixed with other ingredients and used to make decorative marks and symbols on the body of the persons performing or undergoing the ritual. So this usage of this white clay, the shidel, but also we have the usage of the black charcoal smeared on the body, placed in the cuts, the medicine. And we've talked about in our book, Kamet Hinat and Toro, we talked about the axe that's used as the determinative symbol of the deity in ancient Kemet. We have those axes in the Akan tradition that you find those axes on every shrine. We talked about the term prayer, apai, meaning to split or cleave, like an axe coming from thunder, is like, or lightning, an axe coming from the heavens. Unyami akuma, God's axes, splitting trees, but also spirits splitting the head of the person to take up residence and possess. When we make those incisions and put medicine in those incisions, this is what we're talking about. Placing that black medicine, it becomes a magnet for the energy of the abosom or the ancestral spirit to draw to that person. This is why there are cuts made in the head, cuts made in the medicine is placed in those cuts, and the person's body becomes a magnet for the spirit to come and possess and take up residence and use the person as a physical vessel to communicate with community. So whether it's the red clay, the black soil, as well as black charcoal and so forth, and the white clay and these different things, all of these forms, mineral substance forms, are the Komfo's dust, the Komfo's soil. Komfo dust or Goofa dust coming from the Komfo Doctor or the Goofer Doctor. This is an Akan practice with the same terminology. Yes, other groups do the same kinds of things, but the reason why it's called Goofa dust in Hoodoo is because we're utilizing the Akan language as we have always used. There were Okomfo on the continent, priests and priestesses. We continue to have Okomfo in North America. We had Odumafo, a class of priests and priestesses in ancient Akan culture. We had the Oduma people, or the Huduma, men and women here in North America. And of course, as we said, we have Undu, Hoodoo, we have Kanche, which is conjure, we have Hiti, which is a haint. Everything you find in Akan culture on the continent, you find that in the Hoodoo tradition by the same name in North America. This is just yet more evidence that the Hoodoo tradition is the Akan tradition in North America. We are not dependent on anybody in Ghana, Ivory Coast, or anybody outside of our blood circle to teach us the Akan tradition in North America. Hoodoo is the Akan tradition in North America. We have our own priests and priestesses, our own Hoodoo men, Hoodoo women, Komfo men, Komfo women, and so forth, unbroken for hundreds of years, linked to West Afuraitkaitnit, all the way back to ancient Canaan. All right, so we want to scroll through and check in the chat room. If you have any questions or comments, in the chat room, you have to log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, hit the number 1. For the people who came in a little bit later, we mentioned that our Ojiraman Afashe, our Ojiraman conference, Ojiraman is the purified nation, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. We're having our first annual conference for Ojiraman, dealing with Amaniye, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Black nationism, the purification of nationalism. Talking about nationism, nation building from a grounded, ancestrally religious and cultural perspective, a holistic perspective, moving in a proper direction. So we're going to have a number of presenters, vendors all day. It's a free event, of course. We're going to publish our Ojiraman Afashe book. If you would like to place an ad in the book, we sent out a few emails about this over the past few days. The deadline for the ad is actually placing ads is today, because we only have 2.5 weeks left before we publish, and we want to be able to format the book and have everything ready. So if you'd like to place your ads, whether it's for your business, organization, institution, study group, or even just an ad in support of the work that we are doing, because it's going to reach thousands of our people, go to the Ojiraman Afashe page. We posted the link in the chat room. You can order one quarter page is $25, half page is $35, full page is $50. We also have some vending spaces left, $30 for all day. We provide a 6-foot table and 2 chairs. So all of that information is on the page, and the information about the conference and the presenters. We have a couple more presenters we're going to confirm. We have 3 so far. So that information is all on the page, but we need to get those JPEG files in for the submissions so we can begin to format. So the deadline for that is today. Okay, so we have a few calls on the phone line. We're going to take these calls. Okay, Michelle on the phone line, number 0212. You got a question or comment?
Greetings, Brother Quasi.
Greetings.
Hetep, I heard you mentioning the clay and the eating of the clay. I just wanted to mention, I didn't hear you mention the Haitians the other day when the earthquake hit them deliberately. How they survived was by eating those clay formations in order to survive and keep nourishment going when there was no food provided.
Oh, okay. May I say for bringing that in? Definitely. That's very important. So people check that out. Get that information. Yeah, may I say for bringing that up. That's just more confirmation of what we're dealing with over here, doing the same thing that we've been doing for thousands of years. So may I say.
That's it.
Okay, that's it. Okay, hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right. On the phone line, number 1649, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, it's just crazy. I have a question. I hope it's not a silly question, but I was listening to you when you talk about different spells you do with the hoodoo, kufu, and I'd like to know if that ever happened. Somebody just be jealousy, they want to do something like that to anybody. Can that be reversed?
Yeah. So now, which in particular? So what do you mean in particular? And as a matter of fact, one of the things, I don't think I read that specific section, but they were talking about reverse. No, I read a portion of it when it talks about reversing or offsetting something. But in particular, what do you mean?
I mean, like if somebody had cursed you, like with the rattlesnake dust. I don't really pronounce some of the words too good. Is that a way you can have that reverse from you? Somebody have put a curse on you like that.
Yeah. Now, this is the thing. And there are a couple of different things that are going on with regard to people utilizing medicine and mineral substances and plant substances and things like that. On one hand, some people are utilizing these substances like chemists. Devoid of any spiritual energy, they're just chemists. And we've been that for thousands of years. The whites in our spring learned about chemistry from us, of course. So we knew the properties of plant life, mineral life, animal life, glandular medicine, all that kind of thing. And you got to mix different things to make people sick and ill and create airborne contagions and everything else. So some people are utilizing it in that fashion. They just know what to mix, just like a chemist in a laboratory, to create illness within people, whether it's physical illness, mental illness, and so forth. And then other people who are just as capable chemists can reverse that, just like if someone poisoned you with something and you got some medicine and got a purgative and removed it from the system. Then you have people who utilize plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth, but also in concert ancestral spirits or discarnate spirits of relatives or non-relatives, whether they are, harmonious or good-natured ones or criminals. So then you have not only the medicine, but then you have a spirit, a discarnate spirit that they're working with who is coming over to you and trying to possess you or put pressure on you, move you into certain ways or pressure you in the head region to make you start thinking about things differently, and all these insane thoughts start arising, suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, fratricidal thoughts, and all kinds of nonsense. You're like, what's going on with you? I'm feeling physically ill, but I'm also feeling like something is happening within me. So they're working with spirits like that. And of course, in the same fashion, you're going to have somebody else who's working with similar spirits to repel them. Just like you have somebody send somebody to your house physically to, beat you up, and then you can send somebody else to beat that person up. So you can have ancestral spirits or discarnate non-relatives to counteract what they're doing. Then you have other people who work with the abosom, the orisha, the vodou, and so forth, to affect specific results. The only thing that the abosom, orisha, vodou, or spirit forces in creation, they're only going to do what's in harmony with divine order. So if you make this person die so I can steal their wife, no deity is going to participate in that. They will only participate in the kind of, healing practices or killing, when you're killing the enemy to restore order. Then, of course, they will participate in that and direct us to do that. So, depending on what level you're working with, if somebody's just working with chemistry, yes, it can be reversed. Some of these powders and different things can be reversed, and somebody else can just simply counteract it in a chemical counter-reaction. Some people working with those kind of relatives and non-relatives who are not harmonious, you can send ancestral spirits to counter that. So there's always a counter, unless if you are out of harmony with order and somebody's working with the abosom, orisha, and so forth, and you're out of harmony with that, then you're not going to be able to counter that. But you shouldn't be able to anyway. So.
Okay. Okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Made up. Appreciate the question.
Okay.
Okay. So we have, hold on 1 second. I want to make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat room. Saw a couple of comments. Just want to make sure those were not questions. Okay, made our say for posting that. Okay, the Chiavo on the phone line, number 2557. You had a question or a comment?
Mikiramo Ojiafo. My question is, we as Hoodoo people, as Obayifo in North America, I see this Komfo dust as a tool that we can utilize to experiment on the Achiwadiefo. My question is, there are things that we can add to it to make it stronger. Also, does it work better when the ingredients that we add to the Komfo dust, when they're compatible, when they work harmoniously, will it take effect and work stronger? Also, when we're working with the cemetery dust, it's also good to have establish some type of relationship or communication with that graveyard. It's very good to do that because there could be spirits that could be willing to work with what we're doing, and there are also spirits that that are not willing to work with what we're doing. And there's certain spirits that are very aggressive that died in a malicious manner. And it could be, like when we're putting certain things, putting certain concoctions together, we could be like putting together a language. And that spirit could be practically viewing the content of what we're doing and carrying that out as a command, like similar to us sending out a duppy to attack Achiwadiefo. What do you? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, that's we as Obayifo, we're studying plants and animals daily to learn how to attack the enemies of our people. We are training every day. We are making preparations daily. We as Obayifo, Obi of men and women here in North America. And this is something. This Komfo powder is a tool that we could utilize, that we can experiment with. We could learn also how to send out our work utilizing candles. Perhaps not only just leaving it in places, but we can learn how to send our work out utilizing candles and different things. We can experiment with it. It is a tool that we can use to experiment with to destroy the enemies who are attacking our people.
Absolutely. Now, in fact, that first point, that's why we say root work the precedent established by our people, the precedent for chemical and biological weapons of war. We started that here a couple of hundred years ago. It wasn't like, they had to wait until, Fort Detrick, Maryland or something. It's not something brand new that white people came up with. We utilized chemical and biological warfare to wage against the so-called slave masters, to kill them, to help free ourselves from enslavement, to make them sick so we could rout them, to kill them so that we can, wage war and win. So that's always been part of our culture. That's something effective that we've always been able to do. And so that's a very important point that you brought up. And then the second point you brought up with regard to developing a relationship, that's key as well, because, and that's why it's very important that people don't just get some books or look at some internet website and people say, hey, if you want to set up a shrine, go to the graveyard and get some dirt from one of your relatives and put it on the shrine. You really need to don't just follow some instructions. But like you said, you need to understand who you're dealing with. You don't just write down the names of every ancestor that you know, because you don't know if they were a child molester or anything else. You need to make sure who's who and what you're dealing with. Or just people saying, hey, they're getting some little Enochian magic book or something like that, and going into a graveyard and doing some little nonsensical occult stuff, and they're connecting not only with other deceased non-relatives who are in those areas, but people who were in those areas before that place was a cemetery. People who've been around for hundreds of years or thousands of years, who are criminals or, who are aggressive, as you were talking about. We come into the world assigned specific ancestresses and ancestors, Nananom Nsamanfo, of our direct blood circle from our clan. We come into the world assigned to specific abosom. We have a specific configuration of spiritual energy that we can access to execute our function in the world. So we don't need to just, run into any deceased spirits hanging around and trying to conscript them to do something for us. We already have a quote-unquote army of direct blood relatives that we should be working with. So that's why it's important. That's why we always focus on our ancestral culture, born of the blood circles of our people here in the Western Hemisphere that are directly related to us, that we came into the world with, assigned to by Inyame wa Inyame. So we know that we're working with who we need to work with, who we're already part of a collective, a blood circle collective with, so that we're doing what we need to do and we're not self-destructive in the process and end up causing more harm to our people or creating fissures within our community that didn't exist before, because we're doing something in one area but then opening up a vulnerability in the other area that we didn't realize.
Okay. Ikilmo.
But yes, so we appreciate Medase. We appreciate that information.
Medase Ojiafo.
Okay.
What's up?
All right. So we have that. 1 second. Okay, Michelle, well, on the phone line, number 3289, you had a question or a comment? Number 3289, question or comment? Okay, let me make sure we can get in. Hold on 1 second. Okay, Michelle, on the phone line, number 0504. You have a question or a comment?
Peace and love, everyone. Peace and love, Quaker. I wanted to ask if fossils can be used in place of shells when dealing with the sand and doing dealing with the sand or doing anything with the work like that. Can fossils be used in place of the shell?
But now you said what be used in place?
Like fossil rocks. Can those be used in place of shells? Because I know that I know you made a comment earlier. You said that shells are used sometimes with certain things. And I've also heard that, with sand, shells are used. And I just wanted to know, can fossil rocks be used in place of shells?
Now, are you talking about with regard to divination, or you mean, or medicine, or what?
Yes.
And what?
Yes, with divination.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah, some
okay.
divinatory implements are simply different kinds of stones. Sometimes they're shells. Sometimes they're stones where, the person is directed to grab specific kinds of stones, and when they hold them in their hands, then they begin to speak. They are centers of resonance that will connect the person not only to Asase Afu and Asase Ya, or some other divinities, but the specific Abo stones who are associated with the energy complex of those stones. So sometimes that in and of itself is the divinatory practice, grabbing those stones, holding them, and then the images and the information begins to flood into the person. So whether it's shells or stones or water gazing, there's a number of so many different ways different practices that we've been given. And it's very important. So when you receive those kind of messages and you pursue that, whatever your Nananoma and Samafu are directing you to utilize, and the Abosum are directing you to utilize, then you want to pursue that, because that's typically the restoration of an ancestral divinatory practice, a form of oracular divination that your people have been using for hundreds or thousands of years, that's being restored in your blood circle. So definitely, whatever they direct you to, you want to pursue that.
Okay, thank you. Merase.
Merase, no problem. You find, for example, they'll mention in the Dibia tradition, in the Igbo tradition amongst the healers and healeresses, they'll talk about an Afa divination. So, Afa divination is in the Igbo tradition. They call it Ifa in the Yoruba tradition, Fa in Vodun. In Afa divination, they'll talk about 80 different forms of divination. So there are many different forms, with the shell, water, fire in some regards, stone, a number of different things, leather, patches and so forth, with medicine, pendulum, just numerous ways to communicate with the Abosom and some also various elements, different things. Birds, animal totems, dreams, a number of different things. And in fact, we have a page on Facebook, and I can pull up the link real quick. Give you the direct link to that page. One of the pages that we have on Facebook is dealing with divinatory practices, and the title is a little bit long, so I'll just post the link in there. When you go to our Facebook page, Kwesi Akan on Facebook, then when you look at our specific pages, we have a number of different business and other pages. I'm going to pull that link up right now and post it in the Facebook, in the Blog Talk chat room. Amaru Kapo Adebisa Ajumadi, which is basically quote-unquote African American ancestral divination. So we're talking about and promoting this notion of us reestablishing our divinatory practices that were born in the blood circles of our people here in the Western Hemisphere, and restoring those systems, just like the sister was talking about. When you receive that kind of direction, you pursue that, and then you'll find that this is a long-held tradition, typically of your clan. So that's Amarukafo Adebisa Ajumadi. And you'll find that we just placed the link in the chat room, but you can see that. We have some information out there. We have some articles, a couple of broadcasts that we posted, and we're going to continuously post new information there. So keep checking that out. Okay, so make sure we didn't miss anything. No more calls. And the information in the chat room. All right, so it looks like we got everybody. So once again, Ojira Mana Fashe is June 24th. We will be back on tomorrow for Ojira broadcast, but on June 24th is our conference. It's here in Washington, D.C. from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's free, of course, free and open to Afuraitkaitnit people only. We'll have a number of presenters dealing with Amaniye, Afuraitkaitnit, African Black nationism, the purification of nationalism. When we talk about nationism, we're talking about a nation as a living, breathing, organic entity, just like your physical body is an organic entity and your spirit animates that. Just like your organ, like your liver, your heart is an entity with a specific energy configuration, but then governed by a specific divinity, but then the cells are the children of the organ. A nation in and of itself is an entity that has its own spirit governed by a specific abosom. And then when you have people who are part of a nation, and when you have a real nation, meaning a group of people who coalesce, guided by their ancestresses and ancestors and the abosom to coalesce and function as a collective, that natural coming together or coalescing, that coalition becomes an organ, it becomes a living organic entity, a nation that's governed by a major abosom. It's an entity, a living, breathing entity that we are part of. We're like cells, part of a specific organ. Now you have a real nation. We have a specific energy configuration. We have a specific function within the great divine body. Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere, when we align with our ancestral culture, we collect and coalesce as a collective of Afuraitkaitnit people in the world. We are a collective. We are a natural mind. We are a natural nation. And we call ourselves the Ojira mind, the purified nation, those who died and resurrected through the culture like Asar and Aset and so forth. In the Western Hemisphere, we have coalesced, and as our people wake up, we recognize that natural coalition, and we function as a unit, separate clans, ethnic groups, Akan, Yoruba, Efe, Vodun, but then we function together as a harmonious unit. Just like you have different organs, liver, pancreas, spleen, and so forth. They're different. They have their own character, but they all function interdependently. They don't lose their identity, their ethnicity, but their ethnicity and their value participates and contributes to the good of the entire body. So when you know who you are as an Akan person in North America, you know who you are as a Yoruba person in North America, you know who you are as an Efe or Fon or Bakongo or a Vela person in North America, you contribute that specific energy configuration, that specific and value to the whole collective of our people in the Western Hemisphere. We have been interfacing with this region of Asase Afua, the fertile earth mother, this region of earth, with its own character, with its own energy. We have blended blood circles. Because we have done so, we have a specific and unique collective character. We need to function in that fashion to establish an independent, sovereign nation in the Western Hemisphere as well as on the continent. We have two different, separate sister nations, one on the continent, one in the Western Hemisphere. We were talking about nation building from that grounded, holistic perspective. Methods of food production and preservation, methods of curing disease, establishing a military structure, establishing institutions, educational institutions, training institutions, governmental institutions, cultural and religious institutions rooted in our ancestry, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence rooted in our cosmology and culture, the building of homes on acquired land, sovereign territory, and the manufacturing of clothing. These 7 principal values of ancestral nation building is a function of nationism. This is the purification nationalism. We're not talking about secular nationalists, which is ineffective. Messianic nationalists, ineffective. An amorphous nationalism or a rudderless Pan-Africanism where people are just in the abstract saying, hey, I'm Pan-African, so let's just pull together. We're not going to be Christians and Muslims and Hebrews and Moors and all of that nonsense. You get grounded in your real culture. You reject that foolishness and their fake deities and pseudo-philosophy. That's the only way we get back to real nationism, which is the purification of nationalism. So we're getting in detail about that. A number of different presenters. Again, if you would like to post a, ad within the book, You can do so. Tonight is the deadline for that. Go to the Ojidamine Afashe page on our website to do so. And also, if you support the work we're doing, we have 20 books that we have published. That includes Kukutuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, talking about the cosmological foundation of creation. We also proved that Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Buddha, Brahman, these various characters, Allah, Yahweh, never existed in any form or of any race whatsoever. We proved that conclusively. We were the first to promote those proper etymologies in the cosmological foundation to prove that. More means dead. Madaneti, divine law, love, and divine hate. Afurakai, the origin of the term Africa. We're the first to show Afurakai, the origin of the term Africa in the Med due to the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet. We have Ubin Shane, the ancestral summons. We have Kokobo proving that bisexuality, homosexuality was never accepted in ancient Kemet. The divine prohibition against bisexuality, homosexuality in the text of ancient Kemet. We have the origin of the term God, Nganga, Naga, Negus, and so forth. Naga, Negus, and all that has nothing to do with the nigga. Niggas is not mean God. That's pure stupidity. We prove the origins of these terms as well as the cosmological foundation of the term Ga or Ganga, which is the title of Amen and Amenet, the origin of the term God, and so forth. We have a number of different books, Kemet and Ntoro, the Black Nation and Divinity, showing the origin of the term and the cosmological meaning of the term Kemet and Ntoro and the symbolism found in ancient Kemet and Kanat, as well as in the Akan tradition, that black flaming piece of charcoal, meaning Kemet, meaning the black land. We have that same black charcoal in the Akan tradition with the same meaning. We have Ntoro and Neter with the axe representing the divinity. We have the same axe in the Akan tradition representing the deity, so we have the actual meanings of these things. No one has published that information until we released it. So all of our books, 20 books, they range between $8 and $11. If you like to purchase one or more of the books, of course, you can go on the website and do so. On my page on the website. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. That's a permanent deal that we have. The ebook versions are free of all of our books, and the softcover versions range between $8 and $11. The first 5 books are foundational. 5 books for $40 is a 20% discount. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. For example, the first 10 books are $66. The entire 20-book set is $125 for all 20 books. This is what we have. If you'd like to support our work, that's the best way to support the work we're doing. We're also raising funds for our centers, as we said earlier, so we can expand our product and services. We have one more question in the chat room. In Ojidafo, in regards to returning to establishing our mind, what you see as the biggest challenge. Well, we won't even say necessarily a challenge. We just simply have to do the work of restoring the knowledge of our culture, our ancestral religion, and culture. When you establish ancestral religion and culture, Nanasom and Amamre, those are like the 2 right and left hand corners of a great ahinasa or a triangle. The bottom right and left hand corners, the ancestral religion and the culture, and those are the foundation of what you will find at the apex of the triangle, which is ancestry, which is nation building, restoration. So when you establish ancestral religion, then you can establish the culture that is the outgrowth of that, and that culture is the foundation for a sound, stable nation. So when we go back to ancestral religion, culture is born, and then nation building rooted in culture, rooted in ancestral religion, rooted in our cosmology, rooted in our direct experience with the forces of nature as governed by the supreme being, and everything is orderly from top to bottom and from bottom to top. So that's the work that we have to do, and we're just doing that. And until now, we haven't really had that kind of movement. We've had people focused on embracing the pseudo-religions of the white offspring, trying to blacken them up, or being secular or atheistic nationalists or messianic nationalists, or just amorphous, unstructured Pan-Africanists or nationalists with no real foundation, and therefore you look over the past 100 years and we're no closer to any goal of nationalism or Pan-Africanism than we were 100 years prior. And that's because our people were just misinformed. Many of our people who were involved in these movements, they were in their 20s and 30s when they first got involved. They were not informed, and they just moved based on what they knew at the time. But we're more mature than that. We need to establish nationalism on a real foundation. This is why we're talking about nationism, the purification of nationalism. We're talking about Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit nationism, African black nationism, moving in the proper direction. Finally, moving in the proper direction. So, and the next question was, so in essence, we should only build with those who are doing the same thing, reverting back to our reality with regards to our Okra, Nanasom, and they are both first and foremost correct. So, yeah, you can only build with people who are on the same page. It's just like somebody, if you're trying to, establish a healthcare system, for example, which we are talking about, of course, and that's one of the things that we brought out a holistic healthcare system for Ojiraman. And you have people who are talking about natural health, and then you have other people who are addicted to heroin, and they're like, well, even though I'm addicted to heroin, we can still use some of the heroin as part of it. Just respect what I do, and I'm going to respect what you do, and you contribute your healthy, living, and I'll contribute my heroin addiction, and we can make it work because we're all black and we're still being oppressed. That's pure stupidity. Of course, that's self-destructive, and that's just going to bring white culture into what we're trying to do and destroy. And it's the same thing with somebody who's Christian, Muslim, Moor, Hebrew, all this other nonsense, or atheist and all this other foolishness. That's white culture. The reason we're in the condition we're in right now, we need to get rid of that poison, that cancer from our system so that we can build on a firm foundation. When people say we need to not focus on the religions and other people's religions and all, that's foolishness. That's naivete. That's why we're in this condition we're in now, because we're trying to ignore the most important thing that we should not be ignoring. We need to eradicate these fake religions and pseudo-religious practices and white culture from our spirit so that we will be free to move forward in a harmonious fashion. So, and that's key to nationalism. All right. So, okay. So, it's 10:53, so we can end it here. So again, if you have any questions, you can hit us up. Follow us on the Blog Talk channel page, because when you click the follow button on the channel page, then when we send out the notifications for the live broadcast as well as the pre-recorded podcast, you'll get that information, and any updates, including new book release and so forth, you'll get that. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Ojirafo. And, of course, our name site, Afurakai.ning.com, and also Facebook, Kwesi Akan on Facebook, Ojirafo on Facebook, Afurakai on Facebook, and so on. So, one last question. So it's like when you say there is a difference between unity and togetherness. Yes. So when we use that analogy, there is a difference between unity and togetherness. If you go to work at the same time every day, and you meet up on the same bus stop every day, and there are a bunch of people who are going to work at the same time, and you see the same people at the bus stop, and you all get on the same bus, you're together every day, but you are not unified. They have a totally different outlook, focus, and so forth, and when they get off that bus, they're going in a totally different direction. Just because you're together doesn't mean you're unified. And even further, when people talk about unity, our goal is not unity. When people have studied Christianity and Islam and all that other nonsense, and they talk about the one God and all falling up under the one God or the one Ummah and the one this and one that, that was designed to destroy ancestral polytheism, because they wanted to destroy our ancestral religions because they wanted us to obey them. So that seeps into people's ideas of nationalism. So they're like, well, the key to black people is unification. It doesn't matter, where you come from or what kind of religious philosophy you have, as long as you bind together based on what we have in common, which is the oppressor, we can make it. That's stupidity. And a lot of our people have promoted that naivete. Our goal is not, quote unquote, unity or oneness. Our goal is to adhere to divine law. When you adhere to law, unification is instantaneous. So you don't have to seek unity. All you need to do is seek adherence to divine law. So when you have, for example, a penny and a bowling ball and you hold them above your head at the same height and release them at the same time, they will hit the ground at the same time, even though they're different in size and shape, and volume and so forth. The force of gravity unifies them and they fall at the same rate and hit the ground at the same rate. So when they adhere to law, unification is instantaneous. So their goal is to adhere to law. When we adhere to Ma'al and Ma'at, the male and female forces of divine law and balance in every thought, intention, and action, we are instantaneously unified to every Afuraitkaitnit person around the globe who's adhering to Ma'al and Ma'at, because they're adhering to that force in nature that unifies. So we need to adhere to the law, those expressions of divine order. And when we do that, we're instantaneously unified, and then we can make decisions that are productive, and we can eradicate ideas and thoughts and desires that are self-destructive, and we can move forward in an intelligent and harmonious fashion. All right. Okay, so again, Yedase for tuning into the broadcast. We will be back on tomorrow for Ojida, Yebeshia Bio. We will meet again. What's up?